So first, I do want to thank you all for being here and giving me the opportunity to present my proposal for your approval. The title of my proposal is Managing Teacher Attendance, Associations Between Principal Leadership Style and Practices. Okay, and you already met my committee. We could introduce yourselves to me. Back and move on. Okay, so when I began my dissertation journey, my initial thought was I wanted to conduct research about teacher attendance and the implication it has on student achievement. But as I began to research the literature on this subject, I realized there was a lot of research that already existed on this phenomenon. But I still wanted to pursue teacher absence as I was experiencing a high rate of absenteeism in my school. So I decided I would maybe research principals' influence on teachers' absences with their style of leadership and how their leadership style translates into their practices. So during my reading, I learned that during the 2009-2010 school year, approximately 36% of the nation's teachers were absent more than 10 days. So with schools serving high proportions of African American and Latino students, they were reporting even higher absenteeism. According to Frontline Education and Joseph et al., in 2012-2013 and 2013-2014, teachers were in the classrooms 94% of the school year, and 16% of all teachers were classified as chronically absent, which was 18 days or more. In 2016, while the number went down a little, was still the average teacher was missing 9.4 days of school. So I've also learned that American teachers' absence rate is also higher than employees in other U.S. sectors as a whole. In 2008, the absent rate for teachers was 5.5%. However, the U.S. workforce's absent rate was 3.3%. The public sector's absent rate was 2.3%, and similar careers such as community and social services was 2.4%. So then I said, this is still, for me, worth investigating. So I went on to pursue this as my dissertation topic. Teacher absenteeism has an impact on instruction. Teachers have to have substitutes stand in for them when they're not in. And so, therefore, the continuity of instruction and rigor is reduced. Some district substitutes don't even require subs to have bachelor's degrees. Therefore, they aren't highly qualified and are unable to, teach content at the level of the teachers that are permanently there. Student morale suffers when teachers aren't in. A teacher is sometimes the only constant that a student has in their life. And when that teacher is absent, they feel like they're left. They're not. They're constant, or their mentor is not there. So students themselves lose motivation to attend, and they feel abandoned. School climate suffers when teachers aren't there because the teachers that are present have to plan for them and cover their classes sometimes if there's no substitute available. This lowers the morale of the other teachers due to the stress of having to maintain order and sometimes an understaffed school, which we know can turn into teacher turnover. I've experienced that, and a particularly problematic issue for us these past years, but not being able to hire new teachers. Some of the couple of things that I feel I've researched that we seem to feel influences teacher absenteeism. District leave policies. The American teacher absent rate may be higher than other sectors due to the liberal leave policies. Teachers receive sick leave, personal days, bereavement, and religious observance days. And the average number of sick leave that a teacher receives could be 11 days for personal days. And in some districts give 3 days for family illness. Job satisfaction, stress, and burnout also has an influence on teacher attendance. And then some of the demographic characteristics I found from teachers who were absent often would be gender, age, and experience traits. Female teachers seem to be absent more than men. That's possibly due to their family obligations. And inexperienced teachers miss less days, probably because they haven't accrued enough leave as of yet. I'm trying to go to the next screen. Okay. Whoops, too far. I'm sorry. Going the wrong way, Renee. Going the wrong way. Okay. So this is my rationale: leadership and teacher attendance. Okay. Research has established that teacher absence negatively impacts students. Researchers have already examined how leadership affects employee absences as well. So according to Bass et al. In the education sector specifically, leaders can play an integral role in creating a positive school culture, which theoretically should promote strong teacher attendance. A study by Ayala revealed that in one school district, principals reported that they worked to create a climate that discouraged teacher absence by focusing on building high-quality relationships. Some principals have procedures or policies in place regarding teacher absences, which discourage teachers from being absent. A result from the survey, a data survey conducted by Nixon, revealed that teacher absenteeism was tied to the culture of the school and the personal well-being of teachers working in the schools. So we're learning that leaders have a style and it gets translated into their practices. So the study site that I plan on using has an attendance policy. And this policy stipulates that teachers are to have a 96% attendance standard. And their principals are tasked with making sure that they verify the appropriate use of personal and sick leave, and that they ensure that the teachers meet this 96% attendance rate. And principals should be providing teachers with counseling information, enforcing corrective action for teachers not meeting the 96% standard. And so the things that principals are supposed to be doing is like a 5-phase process. The first phase is with them monitoring attendance just to see, which teachers are absent, how often they're absent, and then they're supposed to, by phase 2, if they find a teacher has missed 5 days, they need to have a conference with them and talk about, you're in danger of not meeting that standard. I want to make sure that everything is okay. Offer them information in regards to employee support, offering them the information about Family Leave Act and intermittent family leave, and also making them aware of extended absence items that are out there for them to utilize as well. When they've missed 9 days or more, then that goes into phase 3, where a conference is held to discuss, that they're not making the standard, and a possible referral to HR is going to be forthcoming if attendance doesn't improve. And they're also receiving a conference summary after they've met with the principal in regards to this. By phase 4, now there's a referral made to HR. And from phase 4 and phase 5, HR handles the management of teachers' absences. And it could lead to maybe some kind of disciplinary action or termination of a teacher. So to date, no research has explored how leadership styles translate into specific managerial and leadership practices, such as the implementation of leave policy and data usage to monitor and maintain teacher attendance. So I feel like this is a critical empirical gap that this proposed study is seeking to address. I'm trying to advance my screen. Here we go. So this study will use 2 bodies of theoretical scholarship as a useful framework for investigating the association between the principal practices and teacher absenteeism. The Steers and Rhodes model and the Bassan-Bolio. So Steers and Rhodes model suggests that absence is both voluntary and involuntary, and is most directly influenced by 2 primary factors, which is attendance, motivation, and the ability to come to work. With Bassan-Bolio's framework, they characterize the differences between transformational and transactional leadership and their effects on followers' motivation and performance. So Steers and Rhodes model is a relevant component of their model is employee motivation, which maps closely with the Bassan-Bolio's leadership framework, characterizing differences between transactional and transformational leadership and the effects on followers' motivation and performance. So this is why I chose these 2 bodies for my theoretical framework. Oh, I'm sorry, went too fast. Going back. So my research questions are, and my main research question that I'm seeking to answer is, how do patterns of teachers' attendance relate to principals' understanding and interpretation of district staff absenteeism policies and proactive and reactive approaches to teacher absenteeism? And the specific research questions are below. Okay. How is teacher absence distributed across elementary and middle schools in the focal district? What evidence exists that principals put procedures or policies in place regarding teacher absences? What cultural norms do principals develop regarding teacher absence? What principal practices encourage or discourage teacher absence? And what are the relationships between principal practices, leadership style, and teacher absenteeism? So my design is going to be, I forgot, we turned the screen. I'm sorry. Oh, I wanted to show you my diagram. I forgot about that. My conceptual diagram of the key constructs of my research is depicted in this diagram. It depicts how I will examine the phenomenon of teacher attendance and how principals' implementation of district lead policies contributes to teacher absences. It also illustrates how principals' leadership styles drives leaders' practices for managing attendance and approaches to establishing pro-attendance climate. I'll be using a mixed method design. Let me go to the next one. Okay, for my design, I'll be using mixed method. It'll be explanatory sequential mixed method design, quantitative followed by qualitative, with the influence of principles in terms of leadership style, practices, and their translation of related lead policies. So it aims to connect the pattern of teachers' absences with the influence of principles in terms of their leadership style, practices, and their translation of lead policies. So in using a mixed method, I'm aiming to gather quantitative data from a broad population of teachers, as well as qualitative data from the school leaders capable of offering a more nuanced picture of how leaders' perspective and actions guide the outcomes. And the analysis of the interview data from the principals at the identified schools will elucidate relationships between teacher absence and the practices of the school principal. So my phase one strand will be, I'll be analyzing the identified attendance data from full-time elementary and middle school teachers in a large school district to identify patterns of attendance by schools. And then phase two will be a semi-structured interviews with the principals of schools with high and low attendance rates. Now, I chose to only focus on elementary and middle school teachers because of the existing findings from researchers that revealed that high schools had a lower rate of teacher absenteeism. And then all district classroom teachers of elementary school grades will be used for the quantitative strand of the study. Let me see, go to the next slide. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, good. Will be used for the study. I'll be looking to look at attendance data provided by the district research office, and it'll be reports from school years 2021 and 21-22 and 22-23. The data for the qualitative portion will consist of transcripts from interviews with 10 to 15 principals of schools purposefully selected from the quantitative findings. With interview participants divided roughly evenly between high and low school outliers, and that the teacher attendance is higher or lower than predicted by the student characteristics. There we go. Oh, sorry, went back too much. Went back too far. Then going to the next one. Okay, good. I did pilot my interview protocol with 3 candidates. They volunteered to help me with this to make sure that I was on the right track with my questions. One was a former principal who is currently a first-year executive director of school support, and then another principal of a high school, and one assistant principal. After interviewing of each principal, I conducted a cognitive interview with them, covering all the questions to determine how they understood what each question was asking them. They also provided feedback and some suggestions from and helped me revise relevant questions as a result of their feedback. In addition, the pilot participants also offered me suggestions regarding the pacing of my questions and several prompts to elicit further information. So my data analysis of the first phase which is the teacher attendance data. The quantitative data will be analyzed using descriptive data to determine tendency and range of teacher absenteeism across the district elementary and middle schools. So I'll be looking for variation within schools among teachers. A multivariate linear regression will be used to determine the degree to which school characteristics impact teacher attendance. So I chose this model because I wanted to investigate if the characteristics of the school can predict teacher attendance. So this method will allow for me to correlate multiple variables with an observed outcome and also determine which variable has the strongest impact. Also, I can look at any independent variables at once and establish a relationship to the dependent variable. It's also a better analysis tool when interrogating a large data set, which this project does involve. So ultimately, it's a better predictive model than multiple individual linear regression models alone. And the predictive variables I'm going to be looking for are student enrollment, the percentage of farm students, and the student-teacher ratio. So I do know, though, I was discussing this with a friend of mine, getting their feedback. And so I do know that this regression is not without its negatives, because it's incredibly complicated formulas and process, which I will try to mitigate by using programming software. It also assumes that the independent variables are not correlated to one another, but if true, can lead to confounding effects. So considering this information, the multivariate regression model is the best predictive test for my study. And this will be estimated to identify schools of higher and lower absent rates. And it's going to be estimated twice for two dependent variables: overall teacher average daily attendance expressed as percentage, and the percentage of teachers who missed at least 10% of days on record. Now, my second phase is the qualitative piece, which will be the semi-structured interviews. Oops, I went too far. Okay. So the transcription of the interviews will be done using the TIMI transcribing software. The transcription will also be proofread by me, while I'll be re-listening to the recorded interview while reading the transcripts to ensure it was accuracy of the responses that TIMI picked up. The data will be coded twice. Initial coding will be I'll do using inductive approach to consider the data holistically, and then process coding to identify principles, actions, and practices. The initial and process codes will be grouped into either transformational or transactional principle approaches. Additional things will be developed from the coded related to principles, understanding of district lead policy, perception of teachers' reasons for absence, and school-wide cultural norms. And this, I'm hoping to answer my research question 2 and 3 from this data. So, excuse me, can I get a sip real quick? Results of the quantitative and qualitative analysis will be integrated together to answer research questions 4 and 5. And a joint display will be used as a visual way to represent the connection between the quantitative and the qualitative results. The display will feature columns organized by school groupings, low versus high teacher attendance. And the joint display will also feature meta-inferences gained through leadership style regarding principal practices in relation to schools' teachers' attendance levels. Validity and reliability. So for my quantitative data, the attendance data from all elementary and middle schools in the district policy is meant to assure that there's no variation between schools and how teacher attendance data is recorded. So I'm confident that the quantitative data, is satisfactorily valid. Also, strong data collection methods and storage processes are implemented by the district. For the qualitative piece, the use of the semi-structured interview protocol helps me to reassure that each participant is responding to the same question, and then additional prompts have already been added to allow for standard adjustment to questioning according to the participant's response. Also, as I shared earlier, I did conduct that pilot study with the 3 principals. There's 2 principals and the 1 assistant principal. So, I've already made sure that those questions were clear to the person who was being interviewed and they understood what I was asking. And then for myself, because this project is so near and dear to me, I'm going to use the process of bracketing to ensure the trustworthiness and credibility, and to ensure that my own separate experiences for what is being studied is not going to, cloud my usage of the information, which means I'm really going to be shelving my views about the subject before and after each interview, so as not to make my results biased. And I'm also going to do some member checking by reiterating with the participant what it is they've said to me, to make sure I'm copying or listening to exactly what they're saying and not imposing my own views on the research. So we know that there's no research that does not have any limitations. So my limitations that I'm for thinking ahead of time that may come up would be changes in leadership, because the data that I'm looking at is from 21, 22, 22, 23. Some the schools that may be some of the outlier schools may have changed leadership, and so they may not be included in the they'll probably be excluded from the study. Those schools wouldn't be included for the interview process. Also, my study is correlational and not causal. So the researcher can't conclude that particular principal practices themselves caused the attendance outcomes that were found. And then also COVID leave. Although COVID sick leave converted to other board business, this study's focus is on school differences and thus differences in principal practices. And since this study is limited to a single district, these sick leave conversion apply to all schools the same way. Do I have any questions?